If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. Silk City Hot Sauce. A small batch hot sauce prepared with farm-grown peppers. Rich and vibrant taste, no artificial ingredients, 100% pure goodness. 8 flavors from mild to wild. The sweet and spicy Mango Madness, the green jalapeno sauce called Aztec Attack. The Dragon features fire-roasted peppers and pure Vermont maple syrup. Killer hot sauces for the true hot sauce fanatic, a blend of ghost peppers, habanero peppers, honey, and garlic, and more. You gotta see the bottles, too. Each flavor has original comic book artwork. You gotta see them. Go to SilkCityHotSauce.com. SilkCityHotSauce.com. Enter promo code ED, ED, to save 15%, and you'll also receive a free bottle of hot sauce. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting through my website, emailrevealer.com. Or you can just email me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon, because we put up 8 hours of new content on Patreon each month, as well as a lot of free stuff I put up on Patreon too as well. So check out the Opperman Report Patreon. And of course, our archives are always free. You can find them at Spreaker.com. And if you go to Spreaker.com, you can find our guest. We have him back today, Anthony Bennett. And we have a previous show with him. We did for 2 hours on this topic called Not a White, Getting Away with Murder, uncovering how Stuart Lubbock was killed at Michael Barrymore's home. He's the author of the book, Not a White. It's spelled A-W-I-G-H-T. And he stopped selling the book, so you can get the book for free. You just got to shoot him an email over at ajsbennett, B-E-N-N-E-T-T, at btinternet.com. And I'm going to have a link to that in the description on YouTube and Spreaker. Mr. Bennett, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back, because we've got a lot of development since our last interview.
There has, yes. There was a documentary, which I can tell you more about, published, I think, in 2017, I can't remember if we covered the application we made for a second inquest. That was we mounted that in 2016. I think we got the results in 2018. Following the documentary, which was very well publicised, the police opened up a new inquiry, and they did so by offering initially a £20,000 reward, which was doubled to £40,000. And their thinking was that this would possibly produce somebody, one of those at the Michael Barrymore's house, to come forward and make a disclosure on the basis that loyalties can change over time, and people may have a different view on matters 20 years later. Alongside that was a most extraordinary court case brought by Michael Barrymore against Essex Police. Did we discuss that last time?
No, we didn't. The last interview was in 2018, in March of 2018, so a lot of this is brand new. But before we even get into that, why don't you remind the audience who Anthony Bennett is?
Yes. Well, I'm 73 years old. My career, very briefly, is social worker, welfare rights advisor, solicitor, political campaigner, and full-time official with the UK Independence Party. As you know, we were successful in the end in getting Brexit last year. And really in my last, ever since the Stuart Lubbock case, the last 13 years, I've been not earning a living, but I've been researching three major criminal cases, this one and two others. So that's me. I'm a family man. Anything else you want to know?
Yeah, why don't you remind the audience who Michael Barrymore is, who Mr. Lubbock was, Stuart Lubbock, and the situation that brought about Mr. Lubbock's death.
Yes. Well, just to put this in context, I may have made this comparison last time, and I think it's valid. Michael Barrymore was as famous in Britain as Oprah Winfrey is in America. A household name, on television every week, pretty much, lots of different shows. He was an entertainer, a comic entertainer with a lot of what we call slapstick. I don't know if you have the same word over there.
Sure.
Knockabout comedy. And he was immensely popular. He was really the head of a whole industry of broadcast staff and support staff and what have you. And he lived near to where I lived in Harlow in Essex at the time. And on March the 31st, 2001, so we're right up against the 20th anniversary now, he visited a nightclub in Harlow with his then lover, a 30-year-old man called Jonathan Kenny. And these two had been together for a matter of a few months. Barrymore, by that time, had disclosed that he was a homosexual, and his marriage broke up, and he came out as a gay at a nightclub, I think, and so he was living a gay lifestyle and had various partners. And the two of them went off to the nightclub in Harlow on a Friday evening, and there they met Stuart Lubbock, who was out with his brother, his elder brother, Kevin. And as the evening wore on, Stuart was invited to Michael Barrymore's house. And sometime after midnight, probably nearing 2 o'clock in the morning, Barrymore left the nightclub with Stuart, with a girl called Kylie Merritt, who was a friend of Barrymore, and a taxi driver. And the three of them drove to Michael Barrymore's house. Barrymore, having left his lover of 5 months, stranded at the Millennium. When Kenny realised that he'd been dumped, he travelled as fast as he could to Barrymore's house in a furious rage. In the meantime, somehow two girls came to the property, I think invited by Barrymore. And so there were 7 people there at the party that time. And then 2 other fellows from the village arrived. And all seemed to be going well until 3 men went into the jacuzzi at the property. That is Stuart Lubbock, Jonathan Kenny, and Kylie's sister, Justin Merritt. And it's my belief that Stuart was murdered by one or more of those 2 men, or others, raped to death, in fact, sometime between 4 and 4:30 in the morning. Just to wind up briefly, there was a cover-up, as I've explained in my book, and at 5:45, Justin Merritt phoned the ambulance and said, we found one of the guests in a pool, come and help, we're trying to give him CPR. And probably that gives you an outline of where we got to this case.
Let me ask you this. I was reading Wikipedia before the interview, and they said that there were 9 people at the house that night at the party.
Yes.
That's your conclusion as well?
Oh, yes. I'm certain that there were no others. Yeah, there were no others. There was, just to summarise briefly, Barrymore and his lover, 2 girls, Stuart Lubbock, and 2 other men, and then Justin Merritt and Kylie Merritt. And I believe, by the way, Ed, that Kylie Merritt and Justin Merritt were known to Barrymore, and I think he may have used them for similar purposes on previous occasions.
To lure men to his place?
Yes, to enticement. Yes, I think Justin Merritt may have supplied him with certain substances from time to time also.
Now, are all the people who were at that party, they all survived, they're all alive today except for the victim, Lubbock?
Yes.
And what kind of trials or hearings has there been on this case, and have they testified?
Right, that's a good question. There was what we call an inquest here. You might have a different name in America, I don't know. But there was an inquest in September 2002, which is 18 months after the killing of Stuart. The main problem with the inquest, the main problem with this case right from the beginning, and this is continuing right up to the present day, is that the initial story that he was drowned in the pool, has stuck with the media. And despite what we now know, despite what the police are now saying, when it got to the inquest 18 months later, the police opened the inquest by stating as a fact that Stuart Lubbock was found in the pool. And not only that, but all 4 pathologists in the case were told as a fact that Stuart had drowned in the pool. And my book, which came a few years later, revealed that was really impossible, that it was impossible on a number of accounts. But if you can just hold for a moment the fact that he wasn't in the pool, can you imagine what damage was done by insisting that he was? Because all the 4 pathologists were told as a fact that he was found in the pool. And so what they had to decide was he drowned, or actually was he raped, or was he asphyxiated? And that proved to be a very difficult issue. One of the pathologists was very interested in this issue because he was a drowning expert. And he said quite clearly, this is not a typical drowning. He noticed that there were many pinhead blood spots around Stuart's neck and face and upper body, which this particular pathologist said was a sign of asphyxiation, not drowning. And there were other reasons why drowning didn't appear to be correct. And so what you had in the end was you had some pathologists saying, well, it may have been a drowning, others saying, well, it may not have been. There was some evidence that he might have died from a heart attack, some evidence that he might have been asphyxiated. So what happened in the end was that the inquest reached the very unsatisfactory conclusion of an open verdict. The coroner said, well, look, there's so many different possible explanations. I can't decide how he died, so I'm just going to arrive at an open verdict, which left nobody any the wiser. And, of course, the parents, Terry Lubbock, frustrated because he hadn't got justice.
There was some other litigation that you initiated?
In order to draw attention to this case, we go to 2006 now, and this is how the case was opened up. I lived in the same town as Stuart Lubbock and Terry Lubbock, 2 miles away, and I followed the case. I mean, it was headline news in the local paper week after week, and then in 2006, this is now 5 years after the death, Barrymore appeared on a program called Celebrity Big Brother, which is a reality TV show where people live in a house away from the public for a week or two, secluded, with cameras on all the time. And when Terry Lubbock found out that Barrymore was trying to revive his career, he went to the papers and objected in the strongest terms. And he said, I need help, I need justice on this case, I need the truth. And I'd longed to know what had really happened. And so I wrote to Terry Lubbock and said, look, I've been a solicitor in my career, I'm now doing something else, but can I help you at all? And as a result of that, when he showed me the police papers, I could see there was clear evidence that there had been drug taking at the party. In fact, it was admitted by some of the guests. And so I tried to bring a proceeding against him, not for the murder, but simply because he had been obviously providing drugs on the premises, and there was an allegation that Stuart had cocaine rubbed on his gums. And so I thought, well, I'll open this up by trying to bring a private prosecution. And there was huge interest as soon as that case was brought to court in January 2006. And really, from that moment on, it was almost inevitable when I published a dossier on the case. When I read all the papers, the inquest papers, it was almost inevitable that Essex Police would have to start a full reinvestigation, which they did in December 2006. And then, 6 months later, Barrymore and his lover and Justin Merritt were all arrested on suspicion of rape and murder.
And what was the conclusion of that arrest?
Barrymore was spent 36 hours in the cells being questioned. Not sure how long the others spent, but the police decided there was no further action. The words used in English law is there was insufficient evidence on which to proceed. But just bringing things on to where we are now, I mean, once that happened and there was no further action, the case really lay dormant until 8 years later, sometime in late 2015, when Barrymore made this sensational application to sue Essex Police for wrongful arrest. And that has set in train a sequence of events which I was briefly telling you about. Because once again, Terry Lubbock came to me and said, look, he's trying to sue Essex Police now. He's bringing this back into the spotlight. Can you do anything? And that's when I met up with him again and said, I think there's enough evidence to get the inquest heard again.
One part of all this that fascinates me, if there were 9 people there that night, and there's been various litigation, several at this point, and these people testified at these hearings and these inquests, can they now be charged with perjury now that there's, if they have enough now to make a criminal arrest in this case?
Yeah. I'm not sure whether there are certain time limits under English law, and that
right.
those may be gone. But this was one of the things I insisted on right at the beginning, that they should be charged with perverting the course of justice. Just to refresh your memory from last time, that there were 6 people who, in my judgment, and I can say this without fear of being contradicted, they lied through their teeth about what happened. The whole story of the body in the pool was full of many contradictions, which I've set out in my book, and are very, very clear. There was claims that he was found at the bottom of the pool, that he was found at the top of the pool. One person said he was face down, another one said he was face up. Barrymore said he was the first to find Stuart. One of the other guests said he was the first, and so it goes on. There were just massive contradictions. The 6 people who lied were Barrymore and his lover, the 2 Merritts, and the 2 other men who arrived rather mysteriously at 4 o'clock in the morning. In my view, they arrived before the death, and they were James Fatters and Simon Shaw. And those 6 have given evidence. The 2 girls made statements that didn't appear at the inquest, and I suspect that's probably because they didn't want to. And there are question marks about why those girls didn't come to court. It would, normally speaking, with, as you quite rightly say, with 8 people, you'd expect all of them to come and give evidence. But in the end, the coroner ruled that they needn't be bothered and troubled, and so they never appeared. That was one of many defects about this inquest.
Have you seen their statements?
Yes. Oh no, that was the whole basis of the work I did back in 2006. Well, as somebody who was the father of the victim, Terry Lubbock was entitled to see all the statements, and so I've seen those 2 statements, and he was entitled to see all the expert reports, and obviously his solicitor was as well, and it was that material properly analysed which led me to realise that Stuart was never in that pool, and that there had been a murder, and there had been a very egregious cover-up.
And have you been able to have depositions with everyone? Have you spoken to everyone involved in this case? Everyone that was there that night?
No, well, no, I haven't. No, I'm trying to think. I mean, none of those 8 have I ever spoken to. No.
Okay.
I've spoken to some of the pathologists, yes, but not to the individuals. But perhaps I can just bring you on to the events that have followed this extraordinary application that Barrymore made, I think we'll say late 2015. He claimed £2.5 million damages. What's that, about $3 million, I guess. And the basis was, Ed, that he was wrongly arrested. And to go back to what happened in 2007, the police decided to arrest 3 men simultaneously for obvious reasons. One of them, Barrymore, lived in London, Jonathan Kenny lived in Lancashire, and Justin Merritt lived in Harlow. So they had to get 3 officers fairly quickly to attend and arrest these people and put them in a police car and take them to the police station. In the case of Barrymore, they didn't have an officer of detective inspector rank available, and because of the time constraints, it was a detective sergeant who undertook the arrest. Now, technically speaking, because it's a serious offence, technically speaking, he was wrongfully arrested, but obviously if you take the big picture, he was rightfully arrested. Anyway, the case proceeded through the courts for about 2 years altogether, and in the end, Essex Police offered him £1 compensation because of a technical mistake. Barrymore kept on and on, appealed this and appealed that. In the end, he actually withdrew from the proceedings completely. So he didn't get any money and would have had to pay court costs of several £100,000. But along the way, in order to defend its position, Essex Police brought up a couple of matters which are new, and I know that your listeners didn't hear this before because it only came to my knowledge a couple of years ago.
Okay.
The first, and hugely significant, is that Essex Police announced that an informer had given significant evidence. The main significant evidence was that two individuals had been paid off very large sums of money to keep quiet about the case. Nobody knows who they are. My own suspicion is that the girls and their families may have been paid off. I think that is most likely. It could possibly have been the two men who arrived at 4 o'clock in the morning, but I think the most likely scenario is, given that 6 men, 5 men and 1 woman lied about the body in the pool, that the two people who needed to be kept silent were the girls, who obviously must have witnessed something. So I think they were bought off. That's what would appear to be the case. But the other revelation that was made, which I think is significant, is that it emerged during these proceedings that within 24 hours of Stuart being killed, Michael Barrymore had an emergency operation on his penis. And we know that was carried out at the Springfield Medical Centre in Chelmsford, which is not far from Harlow. Barrymore, by the way, was admitted the same day as Stuart Lubbock was killed. He was admitted to a place called the Priory Hospital, which is a very high-class, very expensive clinic for people who are addicted or need to retreat from the limelight, get away from it all while the hoo-ha carries on. But also, he clearly paid a visit to the Springfield Medical Centre and had an operation on his penis. We know this. Now, first of all, that being the case, it's obviously irrelevant. Nobody could possibly say that was irrelevant under the circumstances. But you'd have to ask why Essex Police never brought this up at the inquest. Now, if the coroner had been made aware of that, do you not think it would have made a difference?
Oh, absolutely. It's so bizarre because I'm not sure if we made this clear, but Stuart Lubbock was sexually assaulted. And there was a rape, and there was evidence of that brought out at the trials, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry we haven't made that clear. It's my fault. Yes, of course. He wasn't in. He was raped to death, and I must say that recently, I'll bring you up to date on this in a minute, but recently the police has effectively admitted that.
No.
I'll come to that in a minute. So the police did not. If you were a competent police officer, and you were told by a staff member at the clinic, a lady staff member at the clinic, if you were told that he'd had an operation on his penis, you would want to do two things, I think, wouldn't you? The first is you'd want to get a statement from the doctor and any other staff who were involved. When did you get a call from Barrymore? When did you operate on him? What was the operation? You'd want to have that in written form, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And secondly, once you got that, you would want to interview Michael Barrymore. And the fact that these things weren't done is another indication to me that this case was handled corruptly from the very beginning. It wasn't, in my opinion, a genuine investigation. And I think perhaps we did cover this point in the earlier broadcast, and that was that Barrymore had originally... Now then, I've slightly lost the point I was going to make there.
Well, that's okay. We're going to take a commercial break in a second anyway, so you can probably recapture your thoughts. But a quick question for you. Has Mr. Barrymore ever given a public statement on the nature of this penis surgery?
No.
Fascinating.
No, it was no, he hasn't. This was the interesting thing is I'll try and get this in before you go to the break.
No, we have time.
It wasn't mentioned, and although it was mentioned in court, in open court, in the High Court, the amazing thing is that although it was in the court record, and I'm quoting to you from the court record, no mainstream media, in fact, no media at all has ever reported on this. It's never been mentioned. Now, you would think, in the ordinary course of events, if you were a journalist, if you're a newspaper editor, you'd put that on the front page, wouldn't you? And so I feel that there's a kind of aura of protection around Barrymore, which has been orchestrated by the police and the media. For some reason, the media doesn't want to get to the truth, and I think that the point I was going to get to is that I actually assisted with the preparation of a documentary, the documentary that was shown in 2018, which started off the new investigation. And I gave them a lot of help. A chap called Owen Phillips came to see me. We had many meetings. I gave him all the background. I explained my theory. He said, yes, very interesting. But when he came to the documentary, there was very little message of the... there was nothing at all about the contents of my book and my theory. But instead, the documentary was titled Barrymore, Body in the Pool. And if you look at that documentary, there was shot after shot of the pool throughout the whole documentary. So you've got to ask why, given all the suspicion in this case, all the material that I produced, why would they produce a long documentary which kept on focusing on Stuart's body being found in the pool, which is the one thing that I exposed was not true 14 years ago.
Fast, almost like a hypnotic suggestion, keep here's another picture of the pool, here's another one, until it's burned into your mind.
It's subliminal, without a doubt. It's absolutely intentional, yeah.
It's fascinating. You see that a lot with a lot of these high-profile cases, that then there's an official TV show about it. There's an official version that's pushed out there, while the true facts are buried. Now, real quick, before we go to the break, you say he had this cloak of protection around him. Did Michael Barrymore travel in those same circles as like Prince Andrew or Jimmy Savile and those guys who seem to be getting away with everything too?
That's a good point. I don't know about Jimmy Savile, but the kind of people he would associate with included a pop singer who's very famous in this country. Have you heard of Elton John at all?
Oh, sure, of course, yeah.
Okay, right. Well,
of course, yeah.
Well, he was a great mate of Elton John. They were great pals. But probably the most important pal he had was Princess Diana, which I know you will have heard of. But Princess Diana used to come to his house, and Barrymore used to go to her palace. They were the best of friends, and I think this has been covered in another book about Barrymore, but they were both people who were in the media spotlight, wanted to be in the media spotlight, but were desperately unhappy. So they used to meet up and console each other and say, oh, how terrible, how beastly the media are being to us. And so they had this kind of, it wasn't a love affair, but they just were in the public eye by their own choice, and but their private lives were just a mess on both of them.
Yeah, that's just fascinating because earlier today I was reading up about Michael Jackson, the king of pop, and they described the same exact. He was friends with Princess Di, and they would have the same long conversations commiserating about their unwanted fame. But we're going to need to take a commercial break. Unwanted fame, the king of pop. We're talking to Anthony Bennett, and he's written a book called Not a White, A-W-I-G-H-T. Whoa, it goes for $596 on Amazon. Okay, but you can get
That's a pirated copy.
Oh my God!
Nothing to do with me. It's a pirated copy.
Right, $600, but you can get it for free. You just gotta email Mr. Bennett at AJSBENNETT at btinternet.com. And if you can't remember all that, just email me at oppermanreport@gmail.com, and I'll send you the email of Mr. Bennett here. We'll be right back with more of Mr. Anthony Bennett talking about the case of Stuart Lubbock and Michael Barrymore after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Thank you so much for listening to the Opperman Report. I want to welcome all our new listeners at WWPR 1490 AM in the Tampa Bay area. We're brand new down here. We're getting a nice warm welcome. We have great advertising opportunities for local sponsors, local businesses, but also international websites and international companies too on our other stations in California, Nevada, Utah, and on the internet worldwide. But down here in Tampa Bay, Florida, we have some great opportunities for you to come in and get very, very affordable advertising rates. Get a hold of me at oppermanreport@gmail.com, and we'll cut you a good deal.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders. And long before that, the Cleveland Street Scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking true stories need no embellishment.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. We're talking to Anthony Bennett, who's written the book Not a White, AWIGHT, and it's a story about Stuart Lubbock and Michael Barrymore. You can get the book for free. He'll send you like a PDF version of the book for free if you email him at AJSBennett, BENNETT, at btinternet.com. But if you just email me, if you can't get all that, just email me at oppermanreport@gmail.com, and I'll send you his email and put you in touch with him so you can get a free copy of that book. Fascinating story. So, Mr. Bennett, there was just an arrest March 17th, days ago.
Yes. Let's get the background to that then.
Sure.
I mentioned a documentary, and I mentioned how I'd cooperated with the documentary makers, and I expected fully that they led me to believe that my analysis of the case would be covered in this 90-minute documentary. When I watched it, I was not mentioned, and my theory wasn't mentioned either, none of it. But instead, the police appeared in the documentary. And the police in that the police appeared in the documentary, and then immediately following, they made an appeal. something I mentioned earlier, and they offered a reward of £20,000, which has increased to £40,000, on the basis that this would perhaps encourage somebody to talk. In my opinion, that's always going to be unlikely, given that 6 people comprehensively lied and would have no interest in speaking, and it looks like 2 others perhaps were paid off. So the prospect of any of them revealing anything is most unlikely. The only other person who was present at the house that night late on was Michael Brown's manager, Mike Brown, who was obviously, well, we know, was called after Stuart was killed, and basically told them to clean up, that he don't do anything until I come. He arrived about 20 minutes later. He only lived 20 minutes drive away, and he supervised operations, the clean-up operations, and obviously had a hand in deciding how to cover this up with the drowning story. But anyway, the police made this appeal, hoping that people would come forward. And I think that was possibly a year ago now. Nothing has happened. One of the curious things about the timing is this. When I published my book in 2007, I announced that it would be released on the 7th of July in 2007. The 3 arrests that I mentioned earlier on suspicion of murder took place 2 weeks before my book was released. Now, on this occasion, during the last few weeks, I've received a number of calls from the media because they're doing background work on the 20th anniversary. It's a common thing in the media, 20th anniversary, 10th anniversary, people review things, and so the media were asking me for details about this and that, and they were obviously preparing programs for transmission on the anniversary, which is in 6 days' time. Now, it's a curious matter of timing that once again, with a burst of publicity in the wings and all the mainstream media having a look at this case, they suddenly produce an arrest. They don't disclose who they arrested except to say that it was a 50-year-old man. And I don't know quite why this has happened, because normally the media sniff around who's been arrested and name the man, and I think there is no legal restriction on me doing so. I'm not going to do so, but it's curious to me that the media, who are usually happy to get anything out in the papers, none of them have mentioned the identity of this man who was arrested. But he's obviously one of those that was at the house that night. But anyway, so nothing has happened for about a year, and then suddenly, as you say, was it the 17th of March, was it?
Well, that's what it says on Wikipedia. But let me ask you this now. The previous arrests in this case, did they mention who was arrested in those arrests? They gave the names?
Yeah, they did before. Yes, they did. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was announced straight away. Those 3 men who were arrested, that was announced. And of course, there was a previous arrest back in 2001 as well. Both Barrymore and Merritt were arrested on suspicion of murder then, possibly Kenny as well. But anyway, the press conference from the police was fascinating, because somebody called Detective Chief Inspector Jennings, and what he said was that the police now felt sure that Stuart Lubbock was killed round about the time he emerged from the jacuzzi with the other 2 men at some time between 4 and 4:30 in the morning. Now, the first point about that is that 14 years ago, I actually said those very words. From my research on the case, it was quite clear that that was the time of death. The reason for that was because all the stories of the 8 people matched up until about 4:15. There were events that happened between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock that were consistent among the witnesses and didn't look as if though they had been put together with any lies. It seemed to be honest. They arrived, they played some music, they got some drinks, so-and-so went to chat with so-and-so, all of that. And then suddenly, at about 4:15, the witness statements are all over the place. They don't match up. They're completely contradictory. So it was really quite easy for me to analyse this and say that's when it happened, that's when Stuart was murdered, around about 4:15. Now, it's unbelievable to me that it's taken 14 years for the police to get to this point. And in my heart, I know that Essex police knew this right at the beginning. I don't think there was any doubt that they knew what had really happened. The lies were so obvious that any decent police force would have arrested a lot of them for perverting the course of justice and would have probably got to the truth. But they didn't do that. But anyway, during his press conference, Jennings said more or less that we believe Stuart was raped and killed by the rape at about 4:30 in the morning. Now, the thing is this. What would be the point of the people who murdered him, or the people who are covering this up, what would be the point of putting Stuart Lubbock in the pool after that? What would be the point? Why would they do that? Particularly when you bear in mind that when the ambulance service was called and arrived at the property, they didn't find a body in the pool. They found it by the side of the pool. If you think about it, why would they, having murdered Stuart, or somebody having murdered Stuart, why would they throw a body into a pool and then pull it out again onto the side? I don't know if you can follow this, but to my mind that makes no sense at all. This is where Essex police are at the minute. They are saying that he was killed at 4:30 and then thrown into the pool and then taken out. The obvious solution to this is this, that they had to clean Stuart up. We know from the manager that he was summoned and ordered a clean-up operation. The only thing they had to do, as I said in my book 14 years ago, all they had to do was lie him by the pool. They actually dressed him with a pair of swimming shorts to make it look as if though he'd been swimming. There was a bit of blood found on them, by the way, just a little bit. Probably he'd more or less stopped bleeding by this time. All you need to do was to get a few buckets of water from the swimming pool and throw it over him just before the ambulance people arrived. And then one of the men, Jonathan Kenny, was practicing CPR on Stuart Lubbock. So it was a very carefully organised cover-up. If you can imagine how quickly they had to think. They had to think, what are we going to do? We're going to pretend it's a drowning. There's no point throwing the body in the pool just to fish it out. Obviously, the plan was to lay his body by the pool and throw some water over him, so that when the ambulance people arrived, there would be no reason for them to disbelieve that this boy had just been pulled out of the pool. There he was in a pair of white shorts, right next to the pool, somebody doing CPR. So the body was never in the pool, and this is the thing that makes me so angry, that for 20 years the media are still saying it was the body in the pool. The documentary was still saying the body in the pool, and even the police now, admitting that he was probably raped at 4:30, are still saying that somehow his body got into the pool. I find this really very frustrating.
At the press conference, did the police say anything about having new evidence?
Not at that time, no. The press conference was over a year ago.
Okay.
There hasn't been a press conference regarding the arrest. The normal arrangement when somebody is arrested is that the police will make a statement, which you know about, saying a 50-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of, in this case, rape and murder. They won't do anything more than that. Under the rules, on a murder charge in Britain, you can hold somebody for up to 7 days. It used to be just 1 day, then it was extended to 4 days, then it's now 7 days. But I think he was released the next day or quite soon afterwards. But the whole basis on which the police were approaching this is they said, as a matter of fact, that they have got new information from a person. So all I can say is if that stands up and if that person has got credible evidence, I hope that possibly Stuart and his family will get justice at last. But the question in my mind is it if they've got new evidence from somebody, is it one of those 8 people, or is it second-hand evidence from somebody else? You know.
Well, what is it? So, you're saying that on this arrest that just took place on March 17, 2021, that he's already been released? He's released out on bail?
Yes, he's out on bail. Yes, he's out on bail. Yeah.
Okay.
He's been bailed to appear again on the 12th of April.
Right.
So although it's a very serious charge, I suppose in a way the fact that he's been released on bail might be a clue. You see, I'm still very, very suspicious of Essex Police. The timing of this is just far too convenient. It's just a couple of weeks away from a series of major interviews, and the media probably will not touch this now because they are genuinely frightened of covering information that might be sub judice. If you can imagine, if they ran splash stories now on Jonathan, on the man who was arrested, if they ran stories now about his rather gruesome private life and his history, that could prejudice a fair trial, couldn't it?
Yeah, right.
And that is a major aspect of British justice. I think America is a bit freer there. We don't allow people to discuss. We presume innocence right from the start. The legal system always presumes innocence, and so people aren't touching the story at all at the minute. They'll wait and see what happens when he appears on the 12th of April. He's got to report to a police station on the 12th of April, and then we'll know a bit more.
Well, Mr. Bennett, we only have about 2 minutes left. What would you like to leave us with?
Sorry?
We only have about 2 minutes left. What would you like to leave us with?
Well, that's a good question. I think really, I hope by now that your listeners will realise that this is a major, major cover-up story concerning somebody as famous in Britain as Oprah Winfrey. You name any of the top celebrities in America, and he was the most popular figure, the most known about, the most watched on television. The thought I'd like to leave, really, I think, is this, that you mentioned Jimmy Savile earlier, and Michael Barrymore this is similar in this respect, in that many people knew that Jimmy Savile was the kind of man that he was a paedophile, and worse than that. And many people know, including the police and including many other people, that Stuart Lubbock wasn't drowned, that he was killed. And many people have covered this up, including those who were at the party. They're all guilty, every single one of them. I include the girls in that because they could have said more. Whether they were bought off or not, I don't know. But the conclusion I would like to leave with people is that if you're famous enough and have got the right connections and have got the right kind of charisma, you can get away, as my book says, getting away with murder. You can literally get away with murder. And this is what Barrymore has done for 20 years. And my final thought is that I don't think it's going to be sorted out now, because this arrest doesn't convince me that justice will be done. The timing is suspicious, and I just hope that I'm wrong about this, Ed. I would love this to be. I'd love to go to the grave knowing that this case has been solved and that Barrymore has got justice. I'm pleased that I managed to spike his career, because Celebrity Big Brother was going to be his comeback moment, and I managed to spike it, so I'm happy about that. But I won't be happy until these people are put behind bars, all of them who lied so much.
Well, I guess it's kind of a sad ending to the show, kind of disappointing, because I thought that this was going to be good news, but it seems like this arrest is part of the cover-up.
It could be good news. Let's hope that it is.
Let's hope. And thank you so much, Mr. Bennett. As things progress here, I'd like to have you back, and we'll talk maybe a little shorter updates.
Love to talk about it. Yes, of course. Yeah, delighted. And all the best to you and your listeners.
Thank you, sir. Now, you can email me at oppermanreport@gmail.com, and I'll get you a copy of the book. I'll make sure the email gets forwarded to Mr. Bennett. Or you can email him directly at ajsbennett, BENNETT, at btinternet.com. Thank you so much, Mr. Bennett.
Yeah, good night.
Good night. And now a word from our sponsors, emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey, Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online, email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com, digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages, create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com, 800-572-9762. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. Silk City Hot Sauce. A small batch hot sauce prepared with farm-grown peppers. Rich and vibrant taste, no artificial ingredients, 100% pure goodness. 8 flavors from mild to wild. The sweet and spicy Mango Madness, the green jalapeno sauce called Aztec Attack. The Dragon features fire-roasted peppers and pure Vermont maple syrup. Killer hot sauces for the true hot sauce fanatic, a blend of ghost peppers, habanero peppers, honey, and garlic, and more. You gotta see the bottles, too. Each flavor has original comic book artwork. You gotta see them. Go to SilkCityHotSauce.com. SilkCityHotSauce.com. Enter promo code ED, ED, to save 15%, and you'll also receive a free bottle of hot sauce. Hey, if you have something you want to promote, like a business or a website, you got a big event coming up, consider advertising on the Opperman Report. We have excellent advertising rates for you. We're on KCAA on 3 different frequencies on AM/FM in California, KSHP 1400 AM in Nevada, WWPR in Florida, the Tampa Bay area, 1490 AM, and also WWNN which is on the east coast of Florida, all the way from Miami up to Port Bay, with 175 miles of I-95. The advertising rates are very affordable. Once your ad goes up and we play the show on the podcast and on the YouTube channel, those ads stay up there forever. And then we play repeats every single night of classic Opperman Report shows. And your new ads will be inserted into those repeats that play every single night. So the saturation is incredible, and the rates are very affordable. Contact me at oppermanreport@gmail.com.